So let's follow the number of interventions that we have today. Right now, we will begin a roundtable with our two guests. I have to remember you that this afternoon at 5 there will be complete lectures by them. So if you want to listen and to see which is the concepts that we will introduce right now in our conversation, it's time to do it. So the idea would be to have near 10 minutes of conversation with them, with Lynn Reaser and with Dollens. And afterwards, we will have the presentation of 6 very brief videos about gastronomy, about all the different sectors that the World Biomimetic Foundation have been working with. And later on, we will have the presentation of the project of the hub of the foundation, and near 12:45 we will have the break. So I will make a very short introduction about our guest speakers. We had contact with Lynn Reaser 1.5 years ago, I think. She was in Barcelona because she had to make a presentation about financing biomimetics in Zurich, remember? And after a meeting in Brussels, in Belgium. So we had some time to exchange some words during this trip. And it was very nice to know that from the economical side of let's say, the productive part of our society, there was a real worry about how biomimetics could get finance for their future projects. We will talk about this. And beside her, we have Dollens. He's a thinker, writer, author. He has, I remember that the first book that I saw about Josep Maria Jujol that was working with Antonio Gaudí here was made by an American researcher, and he was Dollens. And after a first approach a long time ago, he has been making and producing and programming and prototyping new set of, let's say, devices and materials in order to get another relation with nature, or how we can make, or how we can biomimicry architecture, because this is one of the titles of one of his last books. And it was natural that we had a first contact about the creation of the foundation with him. So if it's okay, I think the best thing to ask is about future of biomimetics. No? We can ask it about from different disciplines, from architecture and producing or industrial, and also about economics. So let's begin with economics, because our country is in a deep crisis, like Europe too. So some people is trying to fix or to justify that biomimetics could be like green economy or clean tech if we are going to a more technological production. Could be one of the solutions to change this state where we are now. No? Which is your opinion, Lynn, about this? Which will be the future of biomimetics related to our society?
I believe biomimetics, bioinspiration, or a number of different terms, has a true potential to change the economic model. Historically, we have had a tremendous clash between the environmentalist and the businesses And generally, environmental goals were only achieved through regulation or taxes, which can be an impediment to economic growth and jobs, where the focus clearly in Europe, Spain, and here in Catalonia is very important. So to the extent that companies can embrace bioinspiration solutions, has enabling them to open up new markets, to improve efficiency, to reduce cost, you can have both sustainability goals and economic goals achieved. But I would caution at this point, we have still not achieved that objective. Bioinspiration, biomimetics is still very much of a niche part of our economy. 99.9% of the public, 99.9% of our businesses have no knowledge of this field. And most importantly, it has not captured the investment world at all. There are no bioinspiration funds. There are no bioinspiration exchange-traded funds. And there is very little data in terms of the potential success of this field.
This afternoon, you will show us your Da Vinci Index. Could you introduce to our auditorium something about it?
In 2010, 3 years ago, we did the first study in terms of the economic and the investment potential of the field, which at that point seemed very encouraging, and we also have just updated that, and we remain very encouraged for instance, looking out to year 2030. In the interim, we have developed what we call the Da Vinci Index to monitor the progress in this field. At this point, we're looking at the number and dollar value of various research grants, the number of patents filed, and the number of scholarly articles published worldwide. And the Da Vinci Index since 2000 has shown a very impressive 5.5-fold increase. For instance, last year we had 2,000 scholarly articles linked to biomimetics published around the world, and Spain is among the top 10 countries publishing in this area. So still very encouraging progress there, and I would like to tell you that early next year we are planning to launch, in fact, a global version of the Da Vinci Index. So we're very excited about, again, being able to measure this field globally.
Well, we are eager to see how it has been updated to the actual situation. And I think it's a very, let's say, scientific approach to something like economics, how can interact with something that it seems that comes from visionary points of view, but that at the end has to finish in some products or some technologies that can be applied to our lifestyle.
Yes, and Ignacia, I would say, and I'll be talking about that this afternoon, we basically have three various steps of the whole biomimetics field. The scientific field, which is now very well cemented. We have a lot of amazing research that's being done, a lot of traction in terms of cooperative centers around the world. Then we have the business side, where it's still an uneven success rate as we look at various companies, mostly small companies. And then third, the investment side, where there's basically pretty much of a void in the field. So we really need to have those steps 2 and 3 show much greater traction. And that's why this roadmap that you're talking about is so vital for this field.
Well, something probably that can be done is to support this entrepreneurship approach to new businesses, no? In the sense that it seems that big industries are helping to little teams to try to be entrepreneurs in making new devices, new materials, new products, or create new services that could be fit into biomimetics. So Dennis, you are one of the exponents of the reference while you are creating or checking new kind of materials, new shapes, and another with also with your PhD that is trying to get a new knowledge and how to treat this new knowledge. Can you make us a little introduction about what you will explain this afternoon?
I can. Something that's occurred to me over this morning is that we're sitting in a world monument, and we've been hearing very wonderful things about it, and there are parallel monuments just a few blocks away in many spots in Barcelona. But we haven't said that these are not works of a program, and these are not works of an architect making a program. These are works of an architect experimenting. Gaudí had a workshop. He always had a workshop. He had workers. He had other architects. It was a collaboration. It was an education. And so one of the things I'm working through in biomimetics and the research that I'm doing in Edinburgh is to bring in ways of researching and connecting science and new manufacturing and new ways of teaching, and teaching through smartphones and apps for a whole range of students, from primary students and young children to PhD researchers, so that we start connecting technology as a full system within biomimetics, that the divorce of biomimetics can no longer be tolerated from a beautiful kind of romantic image of nature when we produce technology. So this is my thought, and this is what I will be speaking about a little bit more this afternoon, is that biomimetics includes everything we build. We cannot divorce ourselves from nature. And I think some of the points that Lynn has started to talk about will converge on some of the points that I'm talking about, and maybe in some way make a kind of clarity for ways Gaudí was experimenting with form and knowledge, and ways that his work is still teaching us now.
Sure that it's necessary to make experimentation to create something new, no? But how, well, Lynn has told us this problem about how we could spread the word about biomimetics, no, to industry and to companies. So how do you think that when we are thinking about spreading the word or teaching, let's say, in using all concepts about learning, which would be for you new learning scenarios in order to make some diffusion of what biomimetics could give to us?
I'm very interested in this kind of question and how we can bring ideas of biomimetics and ideas of observational nature, what we could observe in nature and what a child could observe in nature, and connect mathematically. And that if we can make some connections in education through this system and through apps and through some quite well-known technology that all students are using now, I think we could bring around an idea that materials could be biomimetic, and that if we can make materials interesting through computer programming, through animations, through uses of technology, and through new material developments, and make it clear that those developments are coming through science as well, and not make these kind of categorical mistakes that I'm an architect, but I can't do biology. I think we could start addressing both economic issues, but for me, more importantly, is addressing primary educational issues and the way I see society changing. In the United States, I see society collapsing. The way I see a society rebuilding is through children's education. including that of up and through master's and PhD work.
And I would just like to reinforce what Dennis has just said, the importance of really putting bioinspiration, biomimetics in the DNA of how we all think, how businessmen think. And so I think it's part of the educational system, breaking down the silos between the architects and the biologists and the business people and the design, and really have a collaborative understanding, and really starting at the very early stages of education, so that, again, it becomes part of our DNA rather than this very niche business where the people here understand what it means, but the vast public has no knowledge at all of this very exciting mode of innovation.
And can I jump right back in just for a second on that? And when I mean teaching, I'm not thinking of only teaching, say, computation. I'm thinking of teaching and working with your hands, with teaching children and young adults to work with their hands, to work with pieces from nature, to identify them and be able to translate their visual qualities into other forms. In this way, it becomes very, very connected with how Gaudí worked. And you could say that Gaudí really was a biomimetic architect. You can't say that Gaudí had a plan, because nothing Gaudí did can be translated beyond the way of thinking. Gaudí made a way of thinking. To my mind, this is much more important than a way of building, and that what we see here is a way of thinking, not a way of reproducing. We don't want to see casabachos in every city in the world, but we would like to see this sort of thinking in every building in the world.
And Daniel, you made the points earlier, and Dennis, you're making it so well now. People at MIT now, what they decry is the lack of people coming to the campus applying for admission that have not worked in the basement on projects with their hands. And school children today, rather than going out in nature and experimenting and seeing things how they work, they're also highly programmed and running from soccer practice to tutoring practice, that they never really get the experience with nature, which again, we really need to have that kind of Gaudí experience. So I just want to say I think your points are very well made.
Doncs això és el que veureu aquesta tarda a partir de...
This is what you will see from 5 o'clock this afternoon. You're all invited. So if you can be with us a Friday afternoon and doing this we are proposing, we will be delighted.